Jarrell, Texas was founded in 1909. Located 64 kilometers north of Austin, the town never fully recovered from the decline of the cotton industry in the 1920s and 30s. In 1997, a tornado threatened to wipe Jarrell off the map. From the beginning, the Jarrell tornado smacks of something strange. On May 27th, a supercell forms over central Texas.
The Jarrell tornado is memorable for a couple of things. One was it formed in conditions that at the time we thought were very unusual.
The massive supercell lacks strong vertical wind shear, an essential ingredient in typical tornado formation. Meteorologist Bill Gallus teaches tornado forecasting utilizing a virtual reality tornado simulator.
To get a tornado in nature, you need to have really two things. You need a very strong updraft or updraft and downdraft to help stretch the air in the vertical. And you also need to have some source of spin present.
Strong wind shear usually provides a tornado with its source of spin. Before Jarrell, the conventional wisdom was that without strong wind shear, you don't get violent tornadoes. But the unusual atmospheric conditions over central Texas are about to prove the conventional wisdom wrong. Dead wrong. Here, the warm, moist air rises so forcefully it generates a super strong updraft, creating a very powerful and dangerous tornado. As the skies blacken and the winds rage, LaDonna Peterson and her 8-year-old son leave their mobile home for the safety of her mother-in-law's brick house.
I went outside and started watching the clouds outside because they were getting real thick, real dark, real heavy. And all of a sudden, I could hear in the distance, because the wind had picked up, the alarm going off in town.
Ken Adams doesn't hear the town alarm. He's asleep.
And the dog woke me up, and I could tell that dog was really scared. I knew something was wrong, but I don't hear well, but I could feel it. It was like a thunder that you couldn't hear, but you could feel it.
LaDonna's sister-in-law and young daughter join her in their mother-in-law's home. News reports place a tornado 3 kilometers away.
My sister-in-law and I went to a window, and we could actually see the tornado in the distance, but it was like it was just sitting there, just turning, not moving at all.
In fact, the tornado isn't standing still. Its forward movement is clocked at a slow pace of 16 kilometers per hour. But its internal wind speeds are reaching more than 420 kilometers per hour. Now a killer F5, it descends on the women's refuge.
Then all of a sudden we felt a gust of wind hit the house. We could actually see the asphalt being pulled up off of the street, up the road from us. We were sitting there and I said, God, please don't take my family. Then we felt a big gust of wind hit the house and the bathroom door flew open. And at that point, we just started feeling like mud and stuff started coming in, hay.
Minutes later, when Ken Adams walks outside to see why his dog is barking, he comes face to face with a nightmare.
It was so big at the base, probably a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile, that I didn't realize it was a tornado. And by the time that I did realize that it was too late to go anywhere, I ran to the house, opened the back door, and as I did, the door flew out of my hands and the roof of the house came off. I would sort of be picked up. The house would fall on me again.
Suddenly, the tornado is gone.
The whole country looked like it was in a nuclear blast of some type. When I first looked up, I thought I was dead. I mean, I really did.
Ken is wrenched back to reality when he's forced to take in the horror that surrounds him. More than 300 head of cattle were killed or injured by the tornado. Many that survived had to be shot because of the extent of their injuries.
Oh, it was terrible. There's about 300 acres over there, and most of it, you couldn't walk very far without smelling that old dead smell.
LaDonna's family emerges from the rubble of their home and into a wasteland. Nearly every home in their subdivision is obliterated. Many of their neighbors are nowhere to be seen. Others are badly injured.
Mrs. LaFrance was pinned under a tree, and her daughter was laying in the mud and had some really severe injuries to her legs and her arms. It was raining, and she was saying it was hurting her, hitting the open wounds, so the only thing I could find was a dirty blanket laying on the ground to cover her up with, just to keep the rain from hitting the wounds so bad. Later we found out that Mr. LaFrance had been killed in the tornado, and the daughter had been crying through the whole thing, wanting to know where her dad was.
27 people died that day. Half were children. Entire families killed. As scientists studied the Jarrell tornado, several intriguing facts came to light.
The thing that the tornado itself was interesting for was that it was moving very, very slowly, and it was large, and it collected a lot of debris to where the high wind speeds associated with the tornado were there for minutes in locations rather than just for a few seconds.
The tornado traveled approximately 16 kilometers per hour, significantly slower than the average 48 kilometer per hour twister. Another oddity was that most houses in the tornado's path were completely obliterated. After much study, experts found an answer. Physicist Dave Llewellyn's computer models illustrate their findings.
You can actually have thousands of tons of dirt in that debris cloud at any given time. And that dirt can change the internal structure of the tornado.
As the Jarrell tornado passed over the open Texas plain, it picked up massive amounts of dirt, slowing down the funnel's forward movement while increasing its destructive power.
I think down low, that Jarrell tornado probably acted like a giant sandblaster.
Llewellyn and others believe that instead of blowing apart homes with strong winds like some tornadoes, the Jarrell twister destroyed structures via the massive force of wind-blown debris. The Jarrell tornado was as ironic as it was tragic. Experts advise never to try and outrun a twister, but some who died in Jarrell could have escaped the slow-moving storm in cars. Experts advise potential victims without storm shelters to hide in interior rooms like closets or bathrooms. But some in Jarrell did exactly that and died anyway when their entire home was swept away. Still, because no two twisters are ever the same, experts advise that the best option is an underground shelter or safe room built to specific codes. The Jarrell tornado changed the way experts watch for twisters. They now view storm systems with low vertical wind shear as possible violent tornado producers. But no amount of vigilance or insight could stop the deadliest tornado in US history from killing hundreds. And later, a mega-tornado unseen in modern times threatens millions. The Jarrell twister killed 27 people while changing the way experts keep vigil for potential tornado-producing storms. But there was no way to prepare for the deadliest tornado in US history, a brutal F5 that tore through 3 states, killing hundreds. On March 18, 1925, a single tornado slaughtered 695 people in Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. The behemoth F5 blasted a 322-kilometer path of unstoppable annihilation that lasted for hours. Survivor accounts are chilling.
The air was filled with 10,000 things, boards, poles, whole sides of little framed houses. In some cases, the houses themselves were picked up and smashed to the earth, and living beings too. A baby was blown from its mother's arms. Children all around me were cut and bleeding. They cried and screamed. It was something awful.
The destruction was of mythic proportions, primarily because the killer struck an extremely vulnerable population.
People had very few ideas about how to deal with tornadoes. The country was largely rural instead of mostly metropolitan, and they had essentially no way to communicate with each other.
The town of Murfreesboro, where more than 100 people were killed, actually was hit more than 2 hours after the first fatalities from the tornado. And people wondered why hadn't any word gotten downstream, down the telephone lines or telegraph lines, that something was coming.
In 1925, several million people lived in small rural towns throughout Tornado Alley. Today, tens of millions call it home. Modern communication means better warnings, but evacuating a major city before an F5 strikes is still impossible.